All right. So we're going into week 4, guys. This is like week 3 and week 4 is like real life. Like this is how we live. This is where we practice cheats. This is where we go back to the things that work for us. This is where we use the tools and the hacks and really start practicing those tools and the hacks. And everybody's tools and hacks may be a little bit different. So feel free if you guys would like. I know a lot of you guys are at work and doing your thing, so I don't know if you can, but feel free to share those hacks that have been working for you, or if you're struggling with anything, any aha moments. We love to hear those. If anybody has anything that's working for them. Anybody?
Oh, I have a little hack.
Okay.
So when I sit down to eat dinner, this is probably the only meal I actually sit down to have. I'm a perpetual standing and eating lunch person, but I always eat my vegetables and then put another serving of vegetables on, and then I go to my protein. This way, like because I usually go in really hungry. So I'll like just slow myself down by eating my vegetables first, because I could always take another 2 or 3 helpings of vegetables without any guilt whatsoever. So I use that as a little like, instead of like digging into my 2 chicken burgers and then going to my salad and being like, but now I want more chicken burgers, and overdoing on something that should be more portioned as opposed to vegetables. So I always do the vegetables first, and it just helps, because I actually, I have a good appetite. Like I like food, so I'm not one of those people that can have like one little burger and be like, oh, that was good. Like I want another one. So for me, eating more vegetables just slows that whole process for me. So that would be something that I would do. Another hack is my morning routine. I just never don't do it.
Yeah. I've been doing I've never done this, even though I've told you guys to do this all the time on a consistent basis. A big glass of water in the morning as soon as I get up. It just never has been consistent for me. So I've been doing that, and that's been making me feel better too. Mm-hmm. So, it's always a practice or finding something that works for you. So that's working for me right now. So I've been working on that a little bit, trying to just make sure that I get my big glass of water in first thing in the morning. That's been working for me. Anybody else find a hack that's working for them?
We can ask that.
I don't have a hack, but obviously, so I sprained my ankle 3 days into starting this, so I haven't been able to move, but I can still just tell how much better I feel. So obviously, like, we know nutrition is the main part of it, but I've been able to firsthand live that more than usual by not being able to work out the last couple weeks. So it just proves it. So
that's great.
I love that.
That's great. Yeah. They say it, but you're like, and back in the day when we were younger, we could, go for a run a couple days a week and it would just fall off. And now it just doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, it's very true. Very, very true. And your brain fog. I know for me, like the water in the morning helps my brain fog, so just eating cleaner helps that brain fog as well.
And I just think that, like, we can't do something all of the time. What I mean by that is, like, we need to have cycles and we need to vary things, because otherwise either you're going to get bored and then you're not going to know what to do other than what you're doing and then what you used to do. Right. So we have to find that middle ground where, like, okay, I'm getting my period, and we're going to talk about this today because we're talking about intermittent fasting. I'm getting my period and I just want chocolate. That's all. I just want chocolate. I want to eat bad food, blah, blah, blah. And we shame ourselves. Like, God damn it, blah, blah, blah. The reason that you're craving those foods are your hormone shift. We have to shift gracefully with it rather than fighting it, because you fight through it and you're not going to win every single month. You're just not. So if you don't know, like, okay, I'm starting to get I feel like I'm getting my period. It's coming. I know, okay, these are the 4 foods that I'm going to add in that are going to satisfy me so that I don't go off the rails, right? It might be the perfect time to start adding in brown rice or the sweet potato, or maybe a bowl of oatmeal in the morning is something that will soothe you and make you feel better and release all of the other cravings. The reason that we have extreme cravings is because we're not giving ourselves what our bodies are asking, right? So then we go off the deep end and now we're eating chocolate and muffins and all the other bad stuff. Goldfish, whatever it is that you like. But if you listen to your body's telling you what it needs. So no different than with our food. We want to cycle it, right? We don't want to constantly live in week one, because if you always live in week one, then you're never going to understand how to move out of it. If you live in week one, Monday through Friday, but you enjoy your weekends and you know how to balance your weekends off to come back to week one, that's perfectly fine. That's still a cycle. Everybody's cycle is different. So we're just looking for you to find the cycle, because if you are in that straight, you're never, when you get to 6 weeks and 2 days, you're going to be like, all right, that was fun. Now what? That's not the goal here. The goal here is to make you truly understand how food works in your body, and for you to be able to live life and enjoy a drink at a party and go on vacation and go out for dinner and cheat with no guilt, because you know exactly what you did to set up for it and exactly what you're doing tomorrow. Where people fall is that you have the cheat, you have the guilt in it, and then you start to say, fuck it. And then you don't pick your shit back up the next day, and you just continue on with the boohoo for me, rather than like, that happened. That happened. I'm still standing, but now I know I'm going to go back to week one for the next couple of days to reset my mind and reset my body, because nothing's going to happen to you over one cheat. It's the 2, it's the 3, it's the 4. It's a week later that all of a sudden the fog is back, the bloat is back, the water retention, the lack of sleep, your hair doesn't feel good. And as you sit here today and you're heading into week 4, does anyone want to go back to week 1 and start from scratch?
Yes.
Or would you rather week 1 for 2 days so that you could just shake it off and pull yourself back together? Right. So we never want you to go back to the bottom where you have to kind of dig yourself out again. It's okay to vary. It's okay to slip for a weekend. It's perfectly fine. We don't want you to say, okay, it's the weekend, it's Thursday night, it's starting, and I'm not going to start again healthy until Monday morning. That doesn't work either.
Dawn, did you want to jump in there? Were you going to say something? Okay, I thought you were going to say something.
So on the heels of that, we're going to start to talk about intermittent fasting. So now you guys understand what good fat is. You understand how fiber works, how we incorporate it into our bodies, why we need it, and you understand insulin. So now that you understand those 3 things, you're going to understand intermittent fasting more than just a word of intermittent fasting and for a period of time. So there's a feeding period, and then there's a fasting period. Depending on what your goals are, depending what time of the month it is, depends on the length of your fast, and how you break your fast is just as important as the length of your fast. And it's a great hack. Talking about hacks, it's a great hack to undo a cheat. It's a great tool if you are a nighttime snacker and you're trying to break that habit, because if you're going to start fasting, you're going to want to get down earlier, because I promise you, if you start eat at 10 o'clock tonight, 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock is really far away the next day. Like, not eating from the time that you wake up till 2 o'clock to get your fast in is really more challenging than like, I'm full, I'm done, kitchen closed, I don't really need food, I just want food, are very different than like, I'm really hungry, right? So intermittent fasting is on the exact plane as insulin, right? Remember our tank? When we don't fill our tank, we use our tank. Whether you're exercising or living, you're using your tank. So if I don't pile up energy on top of my tank's going to keep you, obviously if I work out, I'm going to use more energy faster, right? But I'm still using energy, and I'm going to be depleting that tank. So when you deplete that tank, you're just giving yourself more room when you want to cheat, or more room, or giving yourself the ability to come off of a cheat, right? So like if I had a really big cheat, I'm going to think about my tank and say, my tank is overflowing. I don't need to eat all my meals the next day. I'm going to let myself rest. I'm going to let my cells rest. I'm going to let my body do its thing with the food that I put in it, right? So that's a mental piece of it. But your body goes into a state of ketosis. Everyone here has probably heard of the keto diet. We don't want you to go on the keto diet, but ketosis is a great thing some of the time. So what happens in ketosis is your body has no available energy, right? So it releases ketones. Ketones are really good for your brain, by the way. And those ketones are helping you burn fat. So basically your body is going into the stored cells, right? Remember we eat, the glucose immediately goes into our bloodstream. The insulin is released into the bloodstream. The amount of insulin matches the amount of glucose. It shifts it, so it opens up your cells so that glucose, that blood sugar, can move out of your veins and into your cells, where it can then be converted into energy. You cannot create energy from glucose in your blood. It has to go inside of your cells. We want to use that energy. We definitely need stored energy. We just don't need to have a massive storage of energy. That massive storage of energy is fat. So if we don't eat for a period of time, We start to go move into the energy source, right? And now we're like, oh, well, the readily available is gone, right? I made it through all the food I had last night. Now I need something else. So I'm going to go back and tap into my stored energy. And when I tap into my stored energy, now I'm just breaking down fat. I'm using fat as fuel as opposed to energy as fuel. So that's how intermittent fasting works. There's different periods of fasting. I didn't put my slides up. I'll put them up on the board later. So there's just the same idea. Like when we had that graph where we had that spike and then we had the drop and we had the spike and the drop. Imagine there just being like this and then a low drop, drop, drop where your body's pulling energy out of its cells rather than food. And then you feed it again, right? We're not looking at starvation. There's no word of starvation here. This is called fasting. It's just a period of time that you don't eat. So it shouldn't be done every day, all month for 6 months in a row. Like we talked about before, there should be a cycle to it. When you are getting your period, it is harder to fast because you're not supposed to be fasting. It's really that simple. If you listen to your body, like, is anywhere here ever, obviously most of us have had children, you're not supposed to have caffeine, right? Like the first trimester, you're not supposed to have caffeine. I can tell you that with natural disgust, the smell of coffee and the taste of coffee made me want to gag because I wasn't supposed to have it. If you just listen to what your body's telling you, you'll probably hear the right messages, right? If you're craving a burger, you're probably missing some iron, right? I want a burger different than I'm craving a burger. So you want to try to listen to your body. If you're finding it really, really, really difficult to fast, stop and think like, wait, am I getting my period in a couple of days? Maybe that's when you don't fast. You stop fasting and you have oatmeal for breakfast and maybe you have a sweet potato at dinner. They're still good carbohydrates, but your body's looking for it because your body actually needs an additional 500 calories or so while you're moving up into getting your period. Because when you shed, you use a lot of calories when you have your period. So your body's amazing. It's trying to store so that it could use. So, a great time to fast is during your period. You probably feel pretty good after the first 2 days of your period. Time you feel pretty good. Besides the fact that you have to carry around a tampon, but you feel pretty good. Right. And then then there's this lull and then there's an ovulation period, right? We all know it. Like you get like a couple of days where you're like, maybe that's just not the day that you're going to have a long fast. Maybe you're just not. Maybe you're not going to fast at all. So there's no shame in fasting and there's no shame in I was going to fast today and I couldn't do it. Right. It's free. It's safe. I mean, ideally the day after a huge cheat, it's a great idea to do it because why am I put good food in when I just had bad food? And I mean bad by like whatever it was you had. And why do I don't need to have 2 egg cups and an avocado for breakfast. I had 2 pieces of crumb cake last night and, bolognese. It's a lot of energy to get through this. A lot of my tanks still waiting to go, readily available, not even hard to use energy. So I would just mentally think to myself, no, I'm going to use that up first. Keep yourself busy, move, exercise, get the process going faster so that you can use that energy and you can start to tap in and your tank comes down and now you have room for the good stuff again. That's how we balance. That's the give and the take. I'm going out for dinner. So you know what? I'm probably going to leave out all my carbohydrates for the day. I'm not going to have any fruit. I'm going to leave out some of those crackers if they're higher carbohydrates. Like I'm not going to have oatmeal that morning because I know I want to have bread at dinner. That's perfect. No one's saying not to have bread. Nothing's forbidden. Chemicals are forbidden. Bad oils should be forbidden, not pizza. It's not forbidden. So the reason that we like intermittent fasting is because it's free and it's a tool and it's a great hack. And it's also really good for busting through plateaus. So if you are not a morning person that likes breakfast, you probably love this story. If you're someone that loves breakfast and you're like, about nighttime, you could fast any period you want. Right? Laura, like jump in. Your fasting period is your period. It doesn't have to be the daytime.
Right.
It could be.
Good. So I've done intermittent fasting all the way up to a 3-day fast just for more research, seeing how my body would react, that kind of thing. It is super clear in the fasting research that I've done that they do not want you fasting right before your period. There are certain times you should be fasting longer. Right now, we're going to just start with some intermittent fasting. That's the beginning of it all. But if your body's telling you to not fast, or your body's telling you that you want something, just like Karen was saying, like you need to go with that. Okay. Like it shouldn't be you shouldn't be like, oh my God, it totally failed. If you decided you want to fast and at You weren't going to eat until 11 o'clock, but it's 9 o'clock and you're like, I just really need something. Your body just needs that. But just make sure, is it your body needs it or you want it as that craving, right? Because that could be a bad habit as well, right? If you're used to eating breakfast all the time and you're trying to intermittent fast, it could just be a mental, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm used to doing this. So this is what I should be doing. There's little tips and tricks too. If you know that like it's more just a mental thing and you just like really want that, drinking, I honestly sometimes will have a seltzer because it just fills me a little bit. That's not going to break your fast. A cup of hot water with lemon. I've read you can do some bone broth. Bone broth is going to pull you out of your fast a little bit, but it will also drop you back into your fast if you're doing a longer fast. But I would have some tea. I would have some hot water with lemon. And what's really important is what you're going to break your fast with as well. So we don't want you breaking your fast with something that's going to spike your insulin, like a complex carbohydrate. And a lot of people we've spoken to and have been through the program, like, oh my God, like I'm fasting and then I'm breaking my fast with a bagel, or a complex carbohydrate. And like, that is just undoing everything you just did. So it should be a healthy fat, most important, and a protein is what you're breaking your fast with.
And like a piece of, like you were doing a carb savvy wrap, it's so low in net carbs, it won't spike your insulin. Like if your lunch is chicken salad and the carb savvy wrap with a half of an avocado and it is so satisfying to you and you don't not want to have, like if you're fasting, you could still have that, right? Like, but I wouldn't break my fast with a yogurt and berries and a little honey on top of it. I wouldn't break my fast with pizza. I wouldn't break my fast with things like that. I mean, listen, on the weekends, if you're pushing yourself into a fast because you're going out for dinner that night or you want different, you're fasting for a different reason, right? You're fasting because you just want to give room in that tank, as opposed to like, I'm just trying to actually I'm trying to keep tapping into my stored fat. They're two different types of fasts, right? So
you should never, ever break your fast with a complex carbohydrate though, period. It should always be broken with a healthy fat. Always. There needs to be a healthy fat in there.
So, but like understanding that, like, okay, if I'm going out for dinner on Saturday night, I might have I'm going to have a long fast because I want to leave room for that day. And then I go out, but you're probably going to eat before dinner at some point. You'll probably eat before dinner, so that would be where I'd have probably something really small. Like I might have like 2 eggs with like the carb savvy wrap or something like that. That was just like a fat with some protein. And like, let it sit and ride. And then I would go out for dinner and enjoy my evening. So, and the reason we're telling you not to break your fast with that higher complex carb is because all you're doing is elevating your insulin pretty quickly with that food, which is exactly what we don't want to do, right? If my
also going to bloat you and hurt your stomach.
If you're so low, like if your insulin is so low, right? Because you're in this fasting state and then you do this huge dump, all you're doing is spiking and dropping. It's no different than having a candy bar. So we want to do that like little road bump, right? So that's that good fat, good protein, vegetables, things like that. So it wouldn't be I would never break my fat with oatmeal. For an example, like we wouldn't do oatmeal. So you would do one of the lower fat, the lower carbohydrate breakfast options or lunch if you're skipping it. But again, there are people that, work overnight and they're going to fast during the day. Yep. For my kitchen shuts down by 8:30, 9 o'clock.
I stopped eating yesterday at 5:30. And because I just didn't have anything. I just realized when I was going to bed last night, I didn't have anything since 5:30. So my fast, if I was fasting, I would be at 5:30, like by 10:30, 11, I would be eating versus maybe 1 o'clock on another day, depending on when I was eating, depending on what was working for me in my fast. Now, if you decide you're going to try a fast for 14 hours, which is a good start, and you at 13 and a half hours are like, I really want something, have it. That 13 and a half hours may be your fast right now. That's why, again, we're going back to the not one size fits all. I think 14 hours is a good start, though. I think you could do it. I think it's a mental game sometimes. We're like, I can't do it.
And remember, sleeping, fasting, right? So like if you stopped eating at 9 o'clock, you go to bed by 11, you wake up, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you've already had a fast. All you're doing is like just extending it a little bit. right? So for most of the fast, you're sleeping. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm waking up and I'm not going to eat for 14 hours. No. Your fast has started. When you took that last bite and you looked up at the clock, I mean, obviously give it a minute, give it 20 minutes for it to move through your system. But like for me, I just think to myself, the last time that I ate was 8 o'clock at night. Then I shut it down and then I would just back out of there, depending on the length of fast, right? So Lori's saying like a great way to start is anywhere between that 12, you're fasting, even if you do 12 hours. Some of you are probably fasting now and don't know it, but an extension of that fast is where that bigger change and bigger jump will happen. Yep. So 13, 14, like Lori said, I think is a great start. Some people like ideally, like a great goal is 15, 16, and that's not every day. But like, if you could try to do that once or twice a week now, you got to train for it. And this sounds really stupid, but you don't just wake up one day and say like, I'm doing an 18-hour fast. Unless you just got really busy and one day you're like, oh my God, I have not eaten since blah, blah, blah. Right? Because you have to train your body to do it. Remember we talked about the flexing in and out of the different systems, right? Like as opposed to my body using available energy, carbohydrate, everything that I'm eating for energy, as opposed to my body being able to flex and then move into the fat or fat. That doesn't happen overnight. Your body has to learn that. Your body is so close to it because you're so clean right now and you're already doing it with food that it's going to happen pretty quickly. So, unless you have a blood sugar issue, a 14, 15-hour fast shouldn't make you like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to faint.
There are also two big other contraindications besides blood sugar is that if you're pregnant, you should not be fasting. And if you have a eating disorder, if you have tendencies for somewhat of an eating disorder, anything like that, we are not recommending that you're fasting. That's something that's out of scope of that. So let's put those two out there.
And if your doctor says for a certain reason, like if you're taking a medicine and you have to take it in the morning and you need to take it with food, you have to take it with food. You can give yourself mini fast throughout the day, right? Like that 4-hour, 5-hour window, you've just started a mini fast and those work too, right? So that's why we don't want you grazing and eating all day, right? You need to let your body rest. If your body is constantly in a state of digestion, that just means every other system is quiet. If you let your body settle from digestion, because when your body goes into digestion, everything else shunts, your body will get the ability to have all of your other cells just clean themselves out, do what they're supposed to do, right? The reason that we don't eat 20 minutes before we work out is because you cramp. Why do you cramp? Because your body's trying to digest, but your body's also trying to put blood into your muscles and run and swim or whatever it is you're trying to do. It's fighting. It can't.
Two women on that.
Right. So that's why we want to kind of bring ourselves out of a state of digestion.
So she's saying to.
So just understanding why that is. So break your fast with something that's a good fat or a good fat and a high protein. Start off with somewhere between 13 and 14 hours. If you're getting your period, it's not the time to start fasting. Don't jump into an 18-hour fast if you've never fasted before, because that, it's just not healthy.
One thing Karen always says too, which I love, and I love this because it doesn't make it pressure, is that fasting may not be for everybody. It's free. So it's a great thing to try. You don't have to go out and buy anything. You can try it. And if it doesn't work for you, there's nothing wrong with that. And there may be days when it's going to work for you better than others. I know for me, Mondays are always an intermittent fasting day for me, unless like I'm not feeling it for my period or whatever other reasons, right? But we tend to maybe have a little more over the weekend or just like slip a little bit, right? So Monday and Tuesday may be a great fasting day for me, or I just feel like fasting that day, because honestly, like you can feel really good after a fast too. So you have to play with it and figure out what works for you. And don't beat yourself up. But again, it's free. So try it, see how you feel.
And sometimes there's forced fast, like you're out and about and you don't have anything with you. And instead of being like, oh my God, I'm starving, I'm going to stop and go get a Burger King or whatever other option you were going to cave in, go, nope, I'm taking it as a fasting day. I'm going to get home. My egg cups are waiting for me because I'm prepped and ready to go. Right. So, or at least you have your staples in your house of things that you have, right? Whether it's your peanut butter and your keto bread or, whatever. It's just as easy to crack 2 eggs in a frying pan as it is to stop somewhere and grab a bagel. So sometimes it's like, an opportunity to take a longer fast because you weren't prepared and you're stuck, just take it. You know, chewing on gum could help. Drinking water, drinking tea, like Lori said. You know, make sure you stay hydrated throughout your fast. Make sure you have to make sure that you put salt in your water unless your doctor suggests otherwise. But if you're having any medical stuff, I would definitely have a conversation with your doctor first before starting an intermittent fasting process. Because this program is designed to help you and give you ideas, and we're here to guide you. But if you're under medical care for any other reason, I would certainly ask your doctor before you say, I'm going to do it. You know, so that would be another thing. Just go slow into it. And it's a really great thing to undo a cheat. It's a great thing to, for a plateau buster. It's a great thing to cycle so that your body learns to flex in and out of the different systems so that it knows how to use energy from both sides. So that when you do have a cheat, it knows what to do. And when you don't, it knows what to do. You're not just in this standstill and not moving, and the scale isn't budging because your body doesn't know how to convert energy.
Awesome.
Any questions on it? It's also all in your portal. If you work out, ideally work out in your fasted state. Why not? Why don't you rev that system up? Right? But here's another thing. Like if I'm going to do, like, say I'm doing a training run, I'm not training for anything, but say I had like a 2-hour training run on Tuesday, I would certainly make sure that on Monday night, I had a whole sweet potato and I had my protein and I had my vegetables. And at lunch, I probably had some yogurt with berries. And for breakfast, I definitely had some of my bread. And I make sure that I would load up, not carbo load, but I would have enough energy that I can get through my workout because I'm not eating before my workout. I'm not waking up in the morning and having a half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't need that. I can't use that. I want what's in me from the night before. So, you know, things like that. If you're training for anything, just reach out so we could talk about how we would fast and what you would eat before and how you would eat after. So those things, you know, it's science. It's really science. So if you're interested in it, that's how we do it. You know, there's different stages of fasting. Like the longer you go, like some people do a really long fast, like you might do an 18, 20-hour fast, and it's not for weight loss, but it's for something called autophagy, which means that your body's actually killing off dead cells that it doesn't need or killing off cancer cells. So it's a real thing. It's not just for weight loss. So, you know, we have tons of research on it. So if you're interested in really learning more about that, we're happy to talk about it. We don't want to bore you, but for the purposes of this is for a weight loss purpose.
Yeah, there's tons of different ways to fast. So right now we are just talking the basics right now. The 101 of intermittent fasting. We can work from there. We do a little bit of that in our accountability program, our month-to-month program, which is something you guys could do after if you're interested.
I mean, I've been fasting. Oh my God. I started fasting probably like 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And I did obviously for weight loss in the beginning, and I loved it. I just really, really loved. I felt like as strange as it is, that I was restricting my eating. I also felt freedom in my eating. I felt like I was in control of, like, okay, this is my fast. This is what I'm gonna break with. There was such a plan in all the pieces to it for me, rather than it being like waking up in the morning and being like, I'm starving. Like I was like, no, right? Like it just was a very good tool for me mentally to like keep my head on track, and it just helped me find that path. So I don't know if it will help anyone like it helped me, but again, I don't do it every day anymore because now I know better. You know, I was doing it too long. You know, I plateaued out. So yeah, it shouldn't be done. I mean, you could do it every other day. You could just do it on Monday, Tuesday. There's no wrong way to do it. The only wrong thing to do is breaking it with the wrong food or starting off too long, too fast.
So let's go back to your clean cut tools now, right? Because in week 4 is when we really start to practice like what real life's going to be like from now on. You have week 1, which you don't really need to go back to a lot, like for the whole week ever again, if you don't want to, as long as you maintain, right? Like week 1 could also be something like you had a long weekend. Maybe Monday and Tuesday, you just do week 1, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you do week 1, right? Bring that insulin tank back down, right? Intermittent fasting is another tool. right? That's another tool that you could try, you could play with. Another tool is if you have not cheated at all, go for a big ass cheat. It shakes your system up. Have a plan, cheat and move forward. What am I missing? Anything else right there?
Just your routines, your non-negotiables, your
And your
water,
routines, your non-negotiables. Yes.
your morning routine, your water, what, taking care of your gut, which is next week. We go deeper dive into that. Like whether you're taking a probiotic or not, we will get you on some form of a probiotic by the end of this. Like just really doing the things that are essential, the essentials.
Yep. The non-negotiables.
Yep.
And that, like, that may be something, you may add a non-negotiable in once a month. Because sometimes it could be overwhelming, right? And then you're like, then you get a case of the fuckets, right? You're like, forget it, this is too much. So if you're like really starting from scratch and this is like a lot for you right now, like stay where you are, stay in your lane. And then maybe, next week you say, I'm going to try to just have that glass of water every morning. Or I'm going to drink that hot water with lemon in the afternoon. Or I'm really going to pause before I have that third cookie at night, whatever it is, right? Those non-negotiables of like the pausing, finding things that work for you, taking your probiotic, sleep, hydration, working out, those kind of things. And we practice them. Guys, it takes time. And that's, can you guys see me?